Okay, guys, we're back for part two, Port Mansfield, Landcut, Redfish Bay, part two. All right, so I talked about in the previous video about my trip up to the Landcut and how I'd mentioned how I'd gone downhill. So here it is here where I broke down in Redfish Bay about seven to 8 miles out of Port Mansfield. So let me give you the backdrop on the story here. So when I cut off the other video, what I was going to do was I was going to head over to Gladys Hole and I was going to drift fish Gladys Hole. And on my way over to Gladys Hole, when I was just heading to get right in there, I looked back behind on the stern on my boat and I could see fuel in the water trailing out from the back of the stern of my boat. So I shut it down, and I could see I was losing a lot of fuel. I was dumping a lot of fuel. So I pulled the cowling off. I looked all around. The fuel hose is there, and all up down through the sock that covers it, that goes into the back of the sponson. And I couldn't locate it, but I was losing fuel, and I could see the fuel line was dropping rapidly in my fuel tank. So what I had to do was, because you got to remember, I said I was going to plan on having like a 4-day trip out there, that I was going to camp out and do multiple days fishing and camping. Well, it didn't work out. I didn't get that far. After the first night of fishing, the weather, I got a lot of moisture. So any of that fishing that I did at night, the moisture got into my SD card, corrupted my SD cards. So I don't have any of the fish that I caught at night fishing under the lights there in the Landcut. And then it messed up my battery charger for my phone. That was a total loss. And then my chargers that I use to my 3-amp chargers, battery maintainers that I had that I use on the boat. Because I took them with me, one to so I can plug it into the generator to keep the batteries charged, so I don't have any issues with it not cranking. So those went down too from getting wet. And so I was still kind of up and up, and I wanted to try to get something going. So that's why I was going to head to Gladys Hole and drift fish that in that next morning, and try to get some videos catching reds back there, chasing the reds in Gladys Hole. Well, it didn't work out because I was losing fuel. So I shut the boat down and I started to look, and I noticed that I was losing a lot of fuel. So right then and there, I had to make a decision. I had to just drop everything that I was trying to do, and I needed to focus on just getting back to Port Mansfield before I lose all my fuel or the boat breaks down and I don't make it back. So that's what I did. So we hit a beeline straight from Gladys Hole back to Port Mansfield. And about 7.5 to 8 miles out of Port Mansfield, the boat just completely dies. I'm shooting across Redfish Bay, and it just completely dies. And that's what you're seeing here in this video, where I call a friend of mine, Robert. He comes and he comes and saves me and Cassie, because we're out there, man. I mean, we're out there in the middle of nowhere, man. And I was just lucky too that my cell phone worked, because generally my cell phone doesn't work out on the Lower Laguna Madre, and where I fish at Arroyo City and stuff, and out in those flats in that area, it doesn't work. And I was surprised when I got on my cell phone there, it worked just fine. So there must be some kind of tower out there, I guess maybe in one of those ranches or something, for people that work with those turbines. So they must have some type of cell tower that was fairly close that I couldn't see. But I had a really good reception and really good connection. So it just shut down. And so it was crank, no start. And this is where all my issues started beginning with the boat, with the motor and the crank no start problems that I kept continuing on and having problems. So I could see I would pump the ball, and I wasn't getting any fuel. So either I couldn't see in the tank, but this is what had happened, because I was going across there, flying, across, and the waves were big. You're talking, you know, we had 2 to 3 foot swells there. And then when I anchored down, it was even bigger than that, because like every fourth wave after the boat broke down, I just anchored it there because I didn't want to drift all the way to the, I think it was the Kennedy Ranch or the King Ranch or the Utility. I'm not sure which ranch it was there. It's whichever one there that has a big pier. There's a big pier that comes out jetting off of the side. So I'm not sure what that one is, which ranch that is. But anyway, I wasn't too sure if Robert would be able to get that close over all the way up against that bank. So I just kind of anchored right where I was at. And about every third to fourth wave, about every fourth to fifth wave would come over the bow of the boat. You know, you'd have and it just come right over the bow. So me and Cassie were bailing. We had to bail a lot of water before Robert got on scene to save the day. You know, but what had happened was this, which I couldn't tell. I couldn't see it. I just knew I wasn't getting fuel, and I couldn't tell what had happened. But what had happened was, once I got the boat back to the house and I pulled the gas tank out and I pulled the pickup tube out, the pickup tube had shattered and broken into a bunch of little pieces. And it was just floating in broken pieces in there. So I guess that it's supposed to be polyurethane, that pickup tube in that polyurethane tank. And I guess they get brittle. And I guess from taking the beating and the slapping and the water as I was coming across there, it just shattered that whole pickup tube. And that's why it wouldn't start. I couldn't get it to crank. And then when I did some more investigating, I pulled out the entire fuel line because I couldn't figure out where the fuel was. I was losing fuel and I couldn't figure out where it was at. So I just pulled the whole line out that ran through the bottom of the hull up into under the console, and then that connected to the gas tank. So I pulled that whole line out, and come to find out, when I pressurized it, it had like spider cracks in it, and it was misting, just like how a mister misted, and it was misting gas out. So it was a twofold problem that day. But see, look how rough it is. Look at that, man. The waves were big, man. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, Redfish Bay, man. That's the roughest bay we got down here, man. And it's no fun being broke down on that part of it. If you're on the flat side, it's no big deal. It's nice and calm. But if you're on this west side, you know, the flats are on the east side, and if you're on the west side, boy, you're in for a ride, man. But that's what had happened. So I was sitting there. I tried my flare gun because I saw some boats going by, and I got a flare gun, and you know, one of those flare pistols, and I popped one of those flares in there, and boom, they're duds. I couldn't believe that, man. The firing pin on that flare kit that I bought, apparently it doesn't hit true to center, and it wouldn't set off the shells. So after that failed, I only had two options. One, I was going to call Robert, see if he can come get me. And then if he couldn't come get me, my second option was going to be, I was going to drift to whatever ranch that was there, tie off the boat, and then I was just going to walk back to the truck and then figure out how I would get the boat back. But lucky for me, Robert picked up, and he was Johnny on the spot, man. It took him about another hour and a half to get out there. And but we were still there, man. We just kept bailing. We didn't stop bailing. Because like I said, every third to fourth wave would come over the bow of the boat. And the thing was when I anchored out, I knew I was in trouble because the water was high, the waves were coming in. So I put a long rope instead of a short rope, you know, to kind of make it rise and come down. You know, the longer the rope is, the higher it's going to rise, the bow will, with the wave, and then come down. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work out for that flats boat, because you know the flats boat hardly has any sides on it anyway. You know, it's not like Robert's boat there that has the high sides. That fisherman that he's in, it's got real high sides on it. So yeah, about every fourth to fifth wave, water would come right over the bow and right into the boat. And we just panhandled water until Robert showed up. And then I threw on my bow line, and as you see in the video, that's where we're at there. He's towing me back to um, Port Mansfield. Yeah, Robert saved the day that day. Yeah. So this is, like I say, this is when all the issues started with my boat, with the motor, mainly the motor. It's been one problem after another with that old 2006 Mercury 115 four-stroke. Up until that time, it was running good. I mean, the only issue I ever had was just changing out the water pump, the impeller, putting a new impeller on it every 2 years. And it ran fine. And like I said, when I'd put in that the day before and heading out to, I had this false sense of security because I'd been running all over the lower end of the lower Laguna Madre, all over Arroyo City area, all over Three Islands area, all over the Padre Island, South Bay area, out at Holly Beach area. I mean, the boat was running fine. The only issue that I'd had prior to this was that my jack plate stopped working. And when I started running it down, going through the wires and looking at it, where the two relays that are on there, when I got into them and opened them up, they were just, corroded, salt corroded really bad. So instead of just replacing the relays, I just replaced the whole harness. So I went down to the Sportsman there in San Benito, and I bought a whole new wiring with relay kit that they sell to rewire up your jack plate. And I think I want to say I paid like $150, $160, I think, for it. And then I put that on, and it fixed the jack plate issue. But other than that, I had not had a problem with it. It was running fine. And it ran fine heading out there that afternoon the day before. And it's just that next morning when I left the Landcut to go to Gladys Hoe, that's when I started having all the issues. And then it's been problematic ever since then. It's been always something with a crank no start on that motor, man. It'll run good for a long time, for a while, and then you'll be going out there, and then boom, it just cuts out. And it doesn't, you can't, you're stuck. Because I broke down so far in this boat. You got to remember, I ran a Dargo Scout 170 with an 88 two-stroke Evinrude on it before I had this boat. And I ran that boat for damn near 20 years. I bought that boat, well, it was 20 years. I bought that boat in 1997, and then I started using this boat in 2017. So 20 years, and I never had an issue out of that boat, that motor, other than change the oil in the lower unit, change the impeller out every 1 to 2 years, depending upon how much shallow water I was running in. Sometimes I'd have to change it out in a year's time because it digs up a lot of sand and stuff, and it eats the impeller up. And I don't even think I ever put plugs in that thing. I might have put plugs in that thing one time in 20 years, and in that old motor. And that boat never left me stranded. Never. I always went out, and I always came back. I brought back in plenty of people over the years with that boat that were stranded out there. I had never been in that predicament other than when I borrowed my friend's dad's boat, which I just discussed in the previous video there about there at Port Mansfield. That's the only time that I was ever in one of those predicaments that the boat was broke down and it slung the prop off the boat. But that worked out. All I did is and it didn't even have a jack plate on it. That was an old Invader 71 or 72 model tri-hull Invader. So that thing took like 3 feet of water to draft just to get floating, All I did is just pull up the engine and lock it, and we just drifted back because the wind was blowing in the right direction. And it took us all day and then some, but by sundown we were washed up on a little beach just south of Port Mansfield, and then I had to walk, I don't know, whatever it was, 3 or 4 miles to get my truck. And then I picked up my truck and I drove back over there and just backed it off off the side of the bank there, because there's like a little beach area. It wasn't really sandy, but it was like a slope down, and it was still some hard mud, hard dirt. And I just backed it right off in the water right there, and it had a breakaway on it, and then pulled the crank all the way out as far as it would go, and we dragged that boat up to it and then hooked it to there and just cranked it all the way up on there, and then boom, out of there, man. That was the only other experience of breaking down out there. Other than that, my Dargle, that thing never left me. Never had an issue with it not starting, and never had an issue with it breaking down out there, man. Always very dependable for 20 some odd years. And then I get this boat, and I've already broke down 3 times out there. This was the first time right here, and this was a big one, man, because I'm telling you, I was almost 8 miles out from Port Mansfield when it broke down on me, and I was so lucky that my cell phone worked, that I had good reception out there. And like I say, generally I don't, but apparently in Redfish Bay there's good cell phone reception. There isn't out there when you get to the flats out there, Arroyo City, and you get out east of Bird Island out there. And behind Green Island back there, the reception's not that great, man. The closer you get to the island it is, but not out around Arroyo City. And like I said, that was a good boat. I can't take anything from that boat. It wasn't a real big boat, because this one here is a 21 foot. That Dargle was only a 17 footer. Really, actually 16.5. They call it a 170, but it's not 17 feet. It's actually 16 feet. Actually, it's 16 feet. It was 16 feet, 11 inches is what it was, I think. Or 16 feet, 5 inches, something like that. But, and I used to go everywhere in that boat. I'm telling you, all over the lower Laguna Madre, up to the Landcut, all the way down to the island, South Bay, in the channel, the ship channel, everywhere, you know, and never had an issue. But I pulled back plenty of people that were stranded out there, and, you know, back into port. And now it's my turn for someone to come save me and pull me in. So I'm probably gonna have to look into getting like that, you know, because back in the day there was no such thing as what are those boat USA or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is, those boat people that come get you, man, that you can pay like it's like an insurance policy. Back in the day they didn't have that. It was just how should I say, it was the right thing to do. You never left anybody stranded out there. You know what I mean? You stopped, asked them if they needed help. And you know, and I'll give you a perfect example too. When I was in that Invader and I lost that prop on that boat, I had a crabbing guy in his little crabbing boat out there, because like I said, we were in fairly, you know, we weren't in super shallow water, but we were in 3-4 feet, you know, 5 feet of water that we were drifting through. And he asked me, you know, he did, and this is back in the day, so this is back 91, 92. He stopped and he said, hey, I can see that you guys are in trouble. Did you need some help? You know, I know he'd pull me back into Port Mansfield. And I saw that he was out there crabbing, checking his crab traps and stuff and everything. I told him, no, we'll be all right, man. The wind's blowing in the right direction, and we'll end up back on the shore. And I'd planned on hitting like right where those apartments are, right there. But it didn't work out that way. We went a little bit further south past those by a few miles, so my calculations were off. But still, it worked out. But you should never leave anybody stranded, man. Because you never know. Because I never charge anybody. I bring them back in and drop them off. And they're always trying to give me money and stuff. And I don't do that. Because all I want them in return is that one of these days they're going to see somebody, and they should return the favor and help that fisherman out, and, you know, help them get back if they're stranded out there. We should, you know, we should look out for each other, you know. But I'll probably check into that boating insurance or something. So, some guys had mentioned it before in the comments when I go back out this time around. I'm just saying, back in the day, there was no such thing as that. You were on your own, and whoever stopped off to help you, that's who stopped off to help you. But Robert came through, man. Yeah, I still can't. I still can't. He still hits me up about this, about how I had to come out and save me and Cassie, man. So Robert's Cassie's hero. Came to get her. But yeah, so that's another reason why. That's the biggest reason why I haven't been on the water, because I'm going through the boat. I'm going to make damn sure that when I put that boat back in the water, I'm not going to go through this problem again, just like what I had here. Because it happened here. It happened when I put in at Tom A, and it was running fine. And no sooner than I get away from the dock, boom, crank no start. And then it happened when I was in the last time it happened was when I was in the sand flats. I was way out in the sand flats. The boat ran really good all the way out there, and I stopped. And then I was doing my drone footage, because I always do it first thing in the morning to before the wind picks up. And I was getting all my drone footage out of the way, and I had a malfunction on my drone, and my drone wouldn't come back to me. It would just go up and down, and it wouldn't come back to the boat. And I'd already drifted, like, I don't know, whatever it was, 300 yards or something away from it, 200-300 yards. And so I'm like, heck, I'm going to go back, and I try to fire the boat up, and it fired up. And as soon as I tried to take off, it just went, oh, and boom, that was it. And it was just crank. It wouldn't start. So I anchored it there, and I had to walk back to get my drone. You'll see it. It's in that video. And I had to walk over to retrieve the drone, and then walk back to the boat. And then I had to drag it. And I drug it for about 4.5, almost 5 hours, man, until I saw somebody. Until those guys came by in that little Dargo Scout scooter and saved me and Cassie, man. Those guys were stand-up guys, man. We were taking a break. We're almost there, too. We're almost to Bird Island. I think I was about less than a quarter of a mile from Bird Island, and I was sitting on a big grass patch because I was tired from dragging it. So I was taking a break, and I was eating something, and I was splitting some food with Cassie and some water. And those guys just happened to come by, man. And I think I saw one person, but they were too far off earlier in the day, but I hadn't seen anybody other than them. So that's why it's taken a while, and it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's going to be running right how it's supposed to, man. Because all I know is that Dargo boat, I never had these issues with that old motor. The downside to that old motor is this. Is fuel. I had a 35-gallon fuel tank on that, and it would suck it, man. I mean, it was good. I mean, that thing would run. It'd run shallow. It'd run almost just as shallow as this boat. This boat actually gets a little bit shallower than that little Dargo, because this one doesn't have that modified V hull on it like that Dargo Scout has. So it sits a little bit lower in the water. But that motor was a good running motor, but it just was never fuel efficient. So that's why I upgraded to a 4-stroke to get the fuel mileage. And this motor does this at 115 that I had on there. It 4-stroke. It gets really fairly good fuel mileage, because I only have a 19-gallon fuel tank in there. And think about it. So for it to go up to Port Mansfield, up to the Landcut and back, that's 40 miles just right there. And besides all the running around that I did and that, that's not, and it still has gas in it, so it was fairly fuel efficient, but that old Evinrude 88 that I had on my Dargo, that thing wasn't. But yeah, now you can see the water tower. You can see where where it's opening up. We're getting close. Cassie's getting excited. You know. And I'm just telling Robert, he's asking me, where do you want to go? And I said, hey, just take me straight in and we'll tie off right where at the old boat ramp. You know. And I think there's a piling or something there, and I'm telling him, hey, you need to go south of it and then come back because the way the wind's blowing, so we don't catch onto it and snag onto it since we have so much rope. So that's what I'm telling him there is just go south and then come back and catch it into, so you can get into the harbor there at Port Mansfield. There's like a, I don't know what it is. There's like some kind of piling there with, I don't know if it's a weather station or what it is that's there. And I didn't want to get wrapped around it because we got a lot of distance between me and him. But yeah, Robert, if you're listening, Cassie and me really appreciate it, and we still say thank you for coming out. Cassie sends her love. You know, the old fisherman saved the day. Yeah. But yeah. So maintenance, upkeep, and I'm telling you, I'm good about maintenance and upkeep on my boat. And I always test it too. You know, I test it and I'll run it before I go out. Because if it's going to break down, I want it to break down here in the driveway at the house before I get out there. And I used to always do that with my Dargo all the time. And like I said, that's why I always knew it ran good. But this one is just, there's just something about that motor, man. It's got some kind of, I don't know. I'm not superstitious, but I'm just saying, man, I don't know, man. It'll run good, I'm telling you, and then all of a sudden, boom, nothing. And I'm telling you, I've changed the plugs. I changed the, I want to say the coil pack. I took the the VST or VCT out, cleaned all that out. Had the low pressure fuel pump tested, had the high pressure fuel pump tested, because you know it's inside that bowl, pulled the manifold off, all that stuff. Injectors cleaned. I mean, I've done all kinds of things to this motor, and it'll just, I mean, I'm telling you, it'll run good. And then all of a sudden, boom, there it goes. Because you know that motor had, I don't know how many hours are on that motor, because I don't have an hour meter that hooks up to it. And when I bought it, the guy told me, oh, it only had like 250, 300 hours, but it didn't have that. Because when I took all the coverings off to repaint the cowling, because the paint was starting to fade after a few years, the whole lower part of the steering pin and arm was completely rusted and gone down there. So I replaced that. So that's telling me that motor had been in the salt water for a long time. It had been sitting in the salt water. Not just being used, taken out, washed down. I'm talking just sitting there like at a dock and just staying in the salt water the whole time. To have that whole lower pin of the steering arm completely gone and rusted off. You know. So I still got the motor. We'll see in the future. If I do another rebuild, I'm going to hang on to it and maybe go through it. See if I can eventually figure out why it keeps cutting out like it does and not running. And maybe put it on something else in the future, down the road. You know. But when I get back on the water, it's going to have that 175 Yamaha show on there, man. So, and I think that's plenty of motor. I don't need anything really bigger than that. I think that's plenty of motor for that boat. You know, it should do fine with that motor. No problem. I mean, it was doing good when it was running. When that motor would run, that 115 Mercury would do really good. I mean, it wasn't no speed demon, but I'm telling you, it performed fine for me out there in the flats, get up in the shallow water like you need it to be. I had a 4-bladed prop on the bottom, and yeah, And it was light on the back too, because it was only 388 pounds. So it suited my needs. I would not have bought another motor if I wasn't having all these issues with this motor. And it was just getting to the point that I couldn't trust it, because it was always in the back of my mind when I was putting in, am I going to get back? And when you get to that point, you have to make a change. You know what I mean? You need to do something different. You can't keep doing the same things over and over again and expect a different result. Something needs to change, and it needs to change drastically so that you have that peace of mind. And that's the reason why I invested in this motor. And I got a good deal on the motor too. So I just happened to come across it online, and I'd been looking for months, if not almost a year, 2 years. I've been looking. I've looked at a lot of motors over the last few years before I bought that one. And then that one finally came along. I kept being patient, because I was about ready to go down and finance one at the Sportsman. I'd already been down there, checked the price. I think it was $19,000 for the same motor that I have, brand new from the Sportsman. It was 19 grand, and I was going to go finance one with them. Was what I was planning on doing. And then I just happened to come across this one on Facebook Marketplace for almost half, I guess, because I paid $11,000 for it, $11,900, I think I paid. Just under $12,000 is what I paid for it. So I got a good deal on the motor. So here we are, back to port, back at the dock. And Robert saved the day. But anytime, Robert, anytime you need me, I'll be there for you. All you got to do, I'm just a phone call away. You know. That old fisherman, man. It took care of business that day. It's a good old boat he's got. But anyway, guys, so that's my trip out to the Landcut. And it was short-lived. I had a whole big plan of camping out multiple days, fishing, do a nice big video on those multiple days and stuff, and the camping at night, fishing under the lights at night. And it just all kind of just, how should I say, came undone. So, but once we get it going again, and I make sure, and I feel that it's ready, and I'm not gonna have any issues, because that motor I'm putting on there only has, I think it has just under 30 hours, so it's practically new, if it even has that. I won't know till I hook up my gauge to it. I got one of those digital gauges, and it'll tell me how many hours are on the motor. But that's what I've been told, because it looks brand new. I mean, it's super clean, super clean. But yeah, we'll be going back. This time Rusty will be on the boat. Cassie, Rusty, and me will be heading back out to the Landcut to finish what we started. You know, and drift Gladys Hole, drift what is it, 9 Mile line or whatever it is over there too, and a few other places there, you know, that I want to go and drift fish, try it out. But like I say, my hat's off to Robert. Robert is has my utmost respect, man. Anything he needs, man. You know. And you know, Robert's the one that caught that big red a couple of videos back. You know. But you see how his fisherman has those higher sides on it, so it's made for that choppy water, and it's got a V hull so it can go through there. My boat's not like that. See how low the sides are? Mine's a flats boat, but his is made for that kind of choppy water that we were just in. They're in Redfish Bay. You know. So we're talking to try to figure out how we're going to get it over to the other side, because the wind's blowing so hard out of the south now. Because you got to remember, the wind was blowing out of the north when I left. And when I came back, the wind had already turned and was blowing out of the south the next day. That just shows you the valley, you know, how the weather changes that fast, you know. But we get it out. I think we get his boat out first, and then I just used a tow line to pull mine over there, or across the dock right there, and then I throw it across the other one and pull it over. But we do his first. I get his out first. And that's what I told him. Let's take care of his boat first. Get his out of the way. But yeah, I mean, that's life. You try to make the best plans and you know, lay them out, and you think you cover everything. Because see, I always take extra stuff. To this day, ever since I lost that prop and that boat that I was telling you guys about, my Dargle boat, I always carried an extra prop with the washer, the thrust washer, and the nut, and extra. So if that ever happened again, and in this boat, also, I have an extra prop because I was burned once, and I'm never going to get burned again losing a prop out there and be stranded. So I always have an extra prop stored in the boat there, just for that occasion. So I always try to calculate, you know, things that are going to happen, and then I usually have extra stuff on the boat to try to help fix it. Especially with this boat, it's been such problematic, that motor has. But I'm hoping that once I get the show on there, all that's in my rear view mirror, it's all going to be in the past, and that show's going to run really good for many, 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 many years. But that boat ramp there has been there ever since I can remember. Even when I was a kid growing up and we'd go to Port Mansfield to fish, it was always there. Ever since I can remember, it's been there. I don't know if it's been the same owners all this time, but it's been there. It's been there for a long time. There's Robert going. He's going to go get his truck. And I'm sitting holding the boat there. But yeah, guys, like I say, that's life, man. You know, sometimes it works out, and then there's just those times that it's not going to work out. And this was one of those times for Cassie and me that it didn't work out. And like I said, out of all things, I couldn't believe it until when I got that gas tank off, that the pickup tube had shattered. I mean, it had shattered in, like, you're talking like 20 pieces. And I had a hard time getting that out of the that fuel tank, man. All those little pieces, I had to get a shop vac and suck it out. But this is going to be it. So we're going to shut it off. Cassie, Rusty, and me will see you guys out on the Lower Laguna Madre. You have a good day.